Всем, кто смотрит сейчас нашу сессию, добрый вечер. Меня зовут Елена Захарова, многие меня знают, и я менеджер проекта «Лиммуд Москва». И, конечно же, сегодня мне особо приятно приветствовать вас здесь, потому что это для меня первое приветствие всех участников на Limmud Unlimited, который организован волонтерами Московского Лимуда. И сегодня у нас удивительная сессия, потому что мы начинаем такой, скажем, встречу с иностранными гостями, которые доселе никогда не были на Московском Лимуде, потому что страны далекие, страны неожиданные. И мы начнем это с удивительного маленького острова, который называется Пальма де Майорка. И сегодня у нас сессия с прекрасным Дани Ротштейном, который возглавляет Limmud Майорка. Но вы знаете, я была бы не я, если бы не сказала, что у нас сегодня удивительный случай, потому что у нас есть друзья в Лимуде Майорка, и это наша подруга, ее зовут Александра, и именно ее я попрошу модерировать сегодняшнюю сессию про тайных евреев Майорки, потому что изнутри острова, так сказать, всегда интереснее, всегда ближе к этим разным тайнам. Итак, Александра, появись же скорее перед нами и возьми у меня бразды правления.
Добрый день. Модератором действительно сегодня буду я. Я помогу сделать вам так, чтобы вам было не одиноко, чтобы Дани было с кем при необходимости поговорить в прямом эфире. Также я буду просматривать ваши вопросы, самые актуальные и интересные буду задавать Дани. Значит, чтобы нам было удобно с вами взаимодействовать, в двух словах я вам расскажу о функционале Zoom. Значит, все ваши видео включены, звук выключен. Пожалуйста, проверьте, что у вас у всех работает видео, но звук выключен. Пожалуйста, не включайте звук в течение всей конференции. Значит, вы можете задавать все свои вопросы спикеру в чате. Если вы зашли с компьютера, то у вас внизу есть кнопка, где написано «Подробнее чат». Если со смартфона, то у вас есть раздел, который называется «Участники чат». Также на некоторых смартфонах он точно так же называется «Подробнее чат». Значит, давайте протестируем. Напишите, пожалуйста, в чат плюсик, если хорошо видно и слышно. И таким образом мы будем знать, что как бы всем все видно и слышно. Вот. В правом верхнем углу вы можете задавать формат просмотра и выбирать видео спикера. Таким образом вы будете его видеть. Хорошо, мой микрофон поближе, хорошо. Отлично. Значит, самое важное, Дани будет говорить на английском языке. Но для этого мы пригласили сегодня вам переводчика Ларису Привальскую, которая будет синхронно переводить на русский язык. Но это не для всех, а для тех, кому интересно, нужно на русском языке. У вас внизу есть, вы можете выбрать эту опцию, у вас есть внизу такой значок «Глобус», вы можете на него нажать, и появится выбор английского либо русского языка. Вот. Если вы выходите с телефона, мы сегодня писали о том, что нужно поставить последнюю версию Zoom, надеюсь, она у вас у всех стоит. Вот. Все ли у всех хорошо слышно, видно, все ли понятно? Есть ли какие-то вопросы до начала конференции, чтобы мы могли его решить? Так, если у всех все как бы работает, все нормально, вот, тогда начинаем и передаем слово уже Дани. Дани, we are ready for you.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone going? So nice to see everybody. Greetings from Palma de Mallorca. As you can see, we have a beautiful outdoors city streets of the old Jewish court of Palma that I'm looking forward to sharing the history with you all today. I don't know, is it possible to share the video that we were going to see with the Russian subtitles? If not, we can do that at a later time. So basically, wanted to introduce myself. My name is Dani Rotштейн. My father is from Netanya, Israel, and my mother is from New York, Westchester, a place called Hartsdale. And her parents are Jewish, and my grandparents were born in Germany and had to escape Nazi Germany in order to come to the United States. I spent a year living in Madrid when I was in college, and I fell in love with Spanish culture, with the food, with the wine, with the way they celebrated life so much. And I basically wanted to come back to Spain. I got a job because I work as a TV production producer. I produce TV commercials, and I was able to get a job in Majorca. And I came here in November 2014 thinking that I was going to be the only Jew on the island because I did not know that there was any Jewish community here on the island of Majorca. To my surprise, I found out that there was a synagogue and that was built and started in the 1980s here. So I went to the synagogue, and it's an Orthodox shul, so men and women sit separately. And we'll never forget my first time visiting there. We started davening, we started praying, and we skipped over one of the prayers as if we didn't have 10 Jewish men, as if we didn't have a minyan. And I counted in the men's section 14 men that were there. So I couldn't understand why we were skipping over this Kaddish. And I asked the person next to me, why are we skipping prayers as if we don't have a minyan? We obviously do. And the man nonchalantly, matter of fact, said to me, oh, well, some of these men are not Jewish, they're Chueta. And I'd never heard this term Chueta before. Put a plus sign if you're able to in your chat right now if you have heard of the term Chueta. Be interesting to see. And also, please put a plus if you have been to the island of Majorca before. It's also nice to see how many people. Thank you. Well, I am someone who has studied a lot of the Spanish Inquisition. I lived in Madrid for a year, and I could not believe that I'd never heard the term Chueta. So what I would like to do now is share my screen, and I'm going to open up a PowerPoint in just 1 second. And we're going to learn about the Chueta people today and the very unknown history of Palma de Mallorca Island. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Is that okay? Yeah? Great. So this is entitled The Secret Jews of Majorca, basically because there is a history here of crypto-Jews, okay? This means people who were Catholic on the outside, but secretly practicing Judaism on the inside of their homes. And that right there you see is a yarmulke with the island of Majorca and Star of David, Magen David, in the middle. So this term, Chueta, is coming from the Catalan word, okay? Here in Majorca, they speak Catalan, or they speak Mallorquin, which is a dialect of Catalan. So els Chuetas, the Chuetas. And please put a plus sign if you've heard of the term marrano before, okay? Marrano is Spanish and Chueta is Catalan, okay? Now, a quick funny story. Marrano, I've always grew up in the United States hearing as someone who is secretly practicing Judaism. So when we moved to, my girlfriend, who later would become my wife, moved from Barcelona, we found a dog and we named this dog Taco. And we had our dog walking around the neighborhood with us. And I'll never forget, one time he started eating some food he should not be eating. And my wife, who's Spanish, said, "Hey, what are you doing, you little marrano?" And I couldn't understand, did my dog suddenly become secretly Jewish? Like, should I get him a little yarmulke or something? I didn't understand why she called him this. I said, "Carlo, why would you say something like this?" It's because the word marrano in Spanish comes from the word marran, which means pig. And they used to call Jews who were converted to Christianity marranos because two reasons. One, they thought the Inquisition would take them out of their homes and force them to eat pig in public. And if they didn't want to eat this, then they knew that they were still practicing Judaism. Another theory I heard just at Limmud Festival in December in Birmingham from one of a fantastic presenter was saying that maybe the old Jews who never converted called the Jews who did convert, the new Christians, they called them marrano, because marrano in Spanish is a terrible word. It's a not nice word, derogatory. And it was maybe the old Jews were calling them, you marranos, you're eating pig now, you've converted to Judaism. So this is where the word marrano comes from. It has a similar meaning, the word chueta. So where does the word chueta come from? Well, one theory is that the word shua, okay, not chueta, shua, also means pork fat, okay? But with the chuetas, it's the opposite. Because the chuetas have these last names that everybody in Majorca knows about, they always try to prove that they were never practicing Judaism. So they would take their barbecues outside their homes and be cooking pork fat so everybody could see that they were eating pork outside. But maybe some were actually not eating pork inside. This was always the double life of the crypto Jew of Majorca. So shua, shueta. Another one is coming from French. The word owl is chouette, and also the word dog is chien. So these are not nice, animals. A dog or a scary owl. Maybe this has a connection to the word chouette. I don't really believe this theory because in Majorca we don't speak French, so I don't understand it. The third reason, and this is probably the most interesting, is the way you say Jew in Catalan is this word right here. I'll show it to you right here. You see where I'm pointing? It says Jueus. This is Jews in Catalan. So Jueto is the not nice way to call someone Jewish. It's like you little Jewish person. Jueto. So listen to it. Jueto and chueto, jueta, chueta, very, very similar. So it is possible that it comes from the old word of Jew in Catalan. Even today, if you go down to a particular street in Majorca that looks similar to a street like this, there are chueta families that still have jewelry shops. The chuetas were always very well-versed in the jewel trade here. If you go up to them and you see their name and you say, hey, are you chueta? Some of them might say, no, I'm Catholic. Because even for some of the older generations, still today, the word chueta could mean Jewish. And they want to make sure that no one thinks that they are still practicing Judaism, right? So I invite you all to come learn about the fascinating history that we will be exploring today. And at the end, please save your questions. I would love to hear your questions when our time is over. A couple important dates for us to understand the history of Jewish Majorca. 1435 is when there was a mass conversion where all of the Jews of Majorca were converted to Christianity. After this date, there are no more Jewish community in Majorca Island, in the Balearic Islands of Spain. From 1435 to 1691, you have a phenomenon, in my opinion, of crypto-Jews, all right, conversos, or new Christians, people who were forcibly converted to Christianity, but some of them were still practicing Judaism. Others not, Others were, really passionate Catholics. And in fact, there are stories of some Jews who were converted to Christianity, and they became the inquisitors, and they were the most dangerous because they knew certain Jewish traditions and diets and whatnot. After 1691, an event happened we'll talk about later. This is where you start to hear the term chuetas, okay, a derogatory term, or they would be called people of Segel Street because this is where they were forced to live. Even though they were Catholic, they were still forced to live in a certain area, or they were just called people of the street, as if they didn't have a home. They were just people of the street. So the first time that we see Jewish presence in the Balearic Islands is in the year 418, okay? Very, very early on. There's a letter by the Bishop Severus who talks about a Jewish community, not in Majorca, but in Menorca, okay, the island next door. And he writes in his letter how he wants to convert the Jewish community of Menorca, even as early as 418. So we believe that after the Second Temple was destroyed in the year 70, that the Romans, as well as Phoenicians, brought Jews over, and this is when Jews started to populate the areas of Sepharad, or the areas of Spain and Portugal. Here you have to know that from 418 to the 1200s, we believe there has always been Jews in the Balearic Islands, under the Almohads, under the Visigoths, and of course the Moros. The island was under Muslim rule from the 700s until the 1200s, okay? In the year 1229, you have the conquering of Medina Majorca. It used to be called Medina Majorca by the Muslims. And Jaime I comes from Aragon, from the area of Barcelona, this area, Tarragona, and he came over and he conquered Majorca. And we do believe at this time that he brought many Jews over from Aragon as well to help finance this conquest. So the Jews that were already living in Majorca and with the Jews that came over from Aragon formed a bigger Jewish community. In 1309, we have some of the first attacks against the Jews of Majorca. That's what this slide is showing. And in 1375, you have a very, very famous map that gets produced in Majorca by the Jewish school of Jewish map makers, cartographers. And the most famous ones are Cresques ben Avraham and his son, Jafuda ben Cresques. As many of you know, the word ben means son of. And so you can see this beautiful map that there are two original copies, one in Paris and one in Barcelona, that still are today. That was done in 1375. And if you look, you can see Italy right here. This is Majorca right here. Here is Spain and Portugal. This is all the Mediterranean Sea. And this is where Majorca rose to such incredible importance. Because look where it's located. This is the most important place you could possibly be, because at the time, this is the world. And if you know that he is Jewish, because it was customary at the time to put this red slab of paint right over by Israel. And we believe that this slab of paint he marked, always commemorating, what do we think it is? The Red Sea. This is the Red Sea, and I always think it's nice that he's from Majorca. His family has been from Majorca for hundreds of years, but he knows that the most important part of the map is Haaretz, is Israel, with the noting of the Red Sea. So this is very important to note that in the 1200s and 1300s, the Jewish community became a very popular place. Jews from all over the Mediterranean came to live in Majorca, from Marseille, from Perpignan, from Barcelona, of course, and other places in Spain. And even as far away as Alexandria, there are documents of people coming from Egypt to come live in Majorca. It was a very healthy and safe place to live. Until we see the first signs of Jewish persecution. On August 2nd of the year 1391, there is a terrible attack on the Call. C-A-L-L, you see this word? Call. It means Jewish ghetto, Jewish quarter in Catalan. So if you go to Barcelona, if you go to Girona, and you find that you are walking on Call Street, you know that you were in the Jewish quarter. And many historians believe that it comes from the Hebrew word of kahal, which means a group of people. It shares the same shoresh as the word kehillah, which means community. And my mother, who is a Jewish educator, always likes to say the difference between the word kahal and kehillah are just two letters, a yud and a hey. And when you put that together, it spells the name of Hashem. So maybe in order to change a group of people, a kahal, to a community where everyone is important, everyone has a role, is with a little help from above. Well, they certainly needed a lot of help from above on this terrible day of August 2nd, 1391. And I like to ask the hard questions, the why. Why did this attack happen in Majorca? Basically, what you need to know is that there was a terrible plague that was suffering in 1350 in Majorca. There was lots of famine, lots of hunger, and it was a very, very difficult place to be at that time. And the Jews were living in the center of town, the medieval town of Palma, next to all the nobles and the royal authorities. And so they were very, very connected. Why? Because Jews were not allowed to own land at this time. They were very much forced to work with their hands and doing merchant, with trading, and of course, money lending. This is very, very important. Why were Jews always associated with money? I found in coming to Spain and finding out about this rich history here, that at that time, Catholic were not allowed to lend money to another Catholic and charge interest. So the king, in his infinite wisdom, said, we'll let the Jews be the money lenders. And that is why the Jews were given this role as money lenders and charging interest. Because things were going so bad at this time in the 1390s, they started to lay blame on the Jews. And so this is when a huge rebellion from the fields, from the farmers, came to the city of Palma, and they were not after the Jews at first. They were after the royal authorities because they were paying too high taxes, and they came to complain. The police and authorities ran to the Belvedere Castle, which is a castle on top of a hill where they were safe. The rebels could not get in, and they yelled out to the Jewish quarter, because of course the Jews were always connected to the noble class because they lent a lot of money to the nobles, and the Jews were also lending a lot of money to the farmers. A terrible attack happened. Over 300 men, women, and children were killed on this day out of a Jewish population of around 2,000 or so. So not everyone was killed. Many were saved. But this was the beginning of the end of the Jewish quarter of Palma. In 1393, all the Jews of Majorca and of course of Aragon as well were forced to wear the rodea. This is a red and yellow wheel that was the colors of Aragon, and this was the sign that they were Jewish. And they had to put this on whenever they would leave the Jewish quarter to be identified, which makes me think of very similar to Nazi Germany, where Jews were also forced to wear the Star of David. So then we come
Dani,
to the...
I'm sorry, Dani,
yes.
I'm sorry just for interrupting. Could you please talk a bit slow so we can translate it in properly, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'm getting excited when I talk about this stuff. So, after this year, there were many people who converted willingly, and also there was a lot of exile. Jafuda ben Crescus, the mapmaker I spoke about earlier, he converted. His name was Jaume Ribas, and he went to Portugal, many historians believe, to be a map maker and help the map making school there as well. 1435 is the terrible year for Majorca when the mass conversion happens. There is another rumor that gets started that some rabbis had taken a Muslim slave and reenacted the Passion of Christ, that they hung him on a cross. We do not believe this was true, but this angered the people even more, and they wanted to, for once and for all, kill all the Jews that was on Majorca Island. The rabbis intervened and said, please don't kill us. How about we all convert to Catholicism, convert to Christianity? So this happens in the church of Santa Eulalia, which you can still see today. Hundreds of Jews came in, and then were all baptized and came out as Christians. This is so important to understand the Chueta people and the unique history of this island. Because if you're one person and you go to get converted, that sounds like a true conversion, maybe. But if you're hundreds of people and you all get converted at the same time, maybe it's not a real conversion. Maybe you're doing it just to save yourself and to not be killed. Remember, Majorca is an island. You don't have this opportunity to get on your horse and go to France or go to North Africa. You need a lot of money to get on a boat to leave. So in Majorca, the options were only to convert or death. Those were your options. So it's very interesting to think about, because can you imagine the priests and the old Christians saying, welcome. We can't wait to teach you all the great things about Christianity. No. They probably said, we don't trust you. We suspect that you are converting to save yourself. We're going to create something called the Inquisition that is going to find out who is a true convert and who is a heretic, who is pretending to be Christian, but really still keeping the law of Moses inside their homes, inside their families. Here we see in the year 1478, exactly what I was speaking about. The Spanish Inquisition was created. And remember the big year, 1492, when the Catholic kings, Ferdinand and Isabel, they expelled all the Jews. That did not apply to Majorca because 60 years before, they were all converted. So again, super important. 1492, nobody leaves Majorca. They were already converted as Christians, but many of them were crypto-Jews. In 1488 to 1834 is when the Majorcan Inquisition existed. Think about that. Over 400 years of Inquisition on an island. The first couple years, 1488 to 1535, we see that the Majorcan Inquisition was focused on conversos, okay? 535 were relaxed and 234 were reconciled. What does that mean? To be reconciled, it means you were allowed to live, but you had all of your property taken away, you had all of your money taken away. Usually you had to wear a San Benito with a big X so everyone knew that you were a relapsed heretic. Sorry if I'm using big words. And the word 535 relaxed, in my opinion, a terrible word to understand what it means. When they say relaxed, it means they were relaxed to the secular arm of the church. The church would judge you, see whether you were still practicing Judaism or not, and then if you were judged guilty, they would relax you to the secular arm. They would give you over to the Dominicans, the dogs of the Inquisition, who would then administer your torture and your public execution. Here you have a picture of what an auto de fe looked like. All the people would come together to witness the executing and burning of the heretics. Many times they were burned in effigy, which means if they had been killed or if they had escaped, they would have a dummy, a mannequin, and they would burn this mannequin as if they were burning the real person. Here you have some notes that there was very little activity between the year 1536 to 1674. Because it's interesting, there was new Christians living in the same place where the Jews used to live. The Jewish quarter suddenly became the new Christian quarter. And a new Christian would never marry with an old Christian. Why? Because probably the new Christian might be still practicing Judaism. So you didn't want an old Christian to come in, see that you were lighting candles on Friday night, and go and tell the Inquisition. It's very dangerous. I read in the historian books that children would never know that they were still practicing Judaism until they were about to get married, and that's when the parents would come and tell them, actually, we're Jewish, we're not Catholic. So what happens in the 1670s, which is very late, 250 years, can you believe that, of secretly practicing your Judaism? I mean, how passionate do you have to be at risk of your family, at risk of everything? And I would like to just tell you a quick information that I'm learning about, that it was very hard to know how to practice Judaism because there were never any Torah or synagogues. They had to meet in each other's houses to read from some books that were delivered to them from their Jewish brothers and sisters in Amsterdam or in Livorno, another part of Italy that had many Jewish people. So how do you do this? One, by keeping Shabbat. There's a phrase that says, over time, history, the Jews did not keep Shabbat, but Shabbat kept the Jews. And it's true. On Saturday, this was a time that they would be in their homes observing Shabbat. But you had to be careful because the inquisitors would walk through the new Christian neighborhoods and look up at the chimneys on Saturdays. Why? Because if there was no smoke coming out, maybe there was someone inside who was still practicing Shabbat, who was still practicing Judaism. Another thing was food. We're going to talk about it later. There's many foods from Majorca that have roots in Jewish customs with the idea of keeping kosher, because Jews do not eat seafood or rabbit or pork, and this was a very popular food in Majorca. So very easy to see what someone is eating and what someone is not eating. And the last thing that kept the Jewish for 250 years secretly keeping their faith, holidays. Normally on my tours, I ask people, what do they think is the most favorite holiday for the Jews? And the answer is Purim. No one would think of this, but Purim has a crypto-Jew as the main hero. It's Esther. So when Purim would come around, they took the fast of Esther very, very seriously. I read in the books that the crypto-Jews of Majorca would lay out a huge meal, and they would go and sit down, and they would stare at their food all day long. And this is how they practiced the fast of Esther, because it was then their way to ask for forgiveness from God, saying, I'm so sorry that I can't be a full Jew with all of the mitzvot and practice circumcision and have my child do a bar mitzvah. So this was their way of asking for forgiveness by torturing themselves. And it's very fascinating to think about the words. Esther might come from the Hebrew word lehastir. Lehastir means to hide. So Esther could mean hidden in a way. The other interesting thing in Hebrew is Purim. The fast, the way you say fast in Hebrew is the word som. Som Yom Kippur, Som Gedalia, Som Tish B'Av. All of the fasts are called som, except for one, the fast of Esther. It's called in Hebrew Ta'anit Esther. And Ta'anit comes from the Hebrew word lanui, which means to torture, the torture of Esther. And the last word, I love where words come from. I look for clues and hints, and this is how I'm trying to find this history, because it's not very open to be looked at. And the last wordplay I'll share with you is the word Yom Kippur. Maybe it comes from the words Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. I'm me, American Jew who Purim you get drunk and you dress up and you make noise, would never associate Purim with Yom Kippur. You know, a very special holiday where you don't eat, you go to pray all day. But maybe there is a connection for the secret Jews of Majorca. So a couple interesting notes there. So what happens in the 1670s? Back to our history lesson here. And my apologies for speaking too fast. In the 1680s, 1688, March 7th, the secret Jewish rabbi at the time, named Raphael Valls, you'll see his name right now, organizes an escape from Majorca. They get on a boat that's organized by an English captain named Captain Willis, and they're about to go to Livorno. Why Livorno in Italy? Because Livorno is one of the only places that was not controlled by the Pope, by the Catholic Church at this time. it was a merchant state like Venice, okay? And Jews were very accepted in this merchant city, this merchant port. There's a saying in Majorca, actually, that they say, once you go to Livorno, no ritorno. You know, like, you go to Livorno, you're not coming back. And this saying comes from the old Jews, the crypto Jews, who would leave and go to Livorno and never come back. Unfortunately, for this boat in particular, it never left because a big storm came up. So as the 40 of them were trying to get back into Palma, there was a malshin, a tattletailer. I don't know how to translate this. Someone who is an informer who told on them of the Inquisition, and the Inquisition was there to catch them. They were then tortured for 3 years in what's called the Casa Negra, the Black House. This is now where Plaza Mayor sits today in the main part of town. This was the headquarters of the Inquisition. For 3 years, they were tortured. They implicated over 250 other people that were secretly practicing Judaism. And in May of 1691, 3 years later, there was a terrible mass execution. And over 37 Chuetas were burned at the stake. Many of them decided to give up their Judaism and say, okay, I'm sorry for practicing Judaism. I want to die as a Christian. They were garroted, meaning strangled, and then they were killed, and then their bodies were burned. But there were 3 people, and I want everyone to know their names, because to me, they are heroes, they are martyrs of the Jewish faith, and we as Jews do not speak about them. We do not know about them, because this story has been kept very quiet to the global Jewish community for many years. These 3 people withstood torture, and at the last time when they could have been strangled and that's it, they said, no, I was born Jewish and I'm going to die Jewish. And they were burned alive in front of 30,000 people that day, May 6, 1691. And their names are Raphael Valls, Raphael Taronji, and Caterina Taronji. And it's an incredible story that this happened, and not enough people are talking about it. After this date of 1691, we believe that there are no more practicing like secret Jews. This is when we see the word Chueta start to appear. Why? Because there was a famous book called La Fe Triunfante that took down what happened and tried to tell the story to everyone so they would never forget. And these descendants of the people that were killed that day, their names were hung in a church that no longer exists. They destroyed it in the 1800s. So all of the people would always come to the church and see the names of the people and remind them, do not associate or marry any one of these Chueta people because they have bad blood. They come from the Jews, and the Chueta people suffered terrible, terrible things. They were attacked every now and then. They were not allowed to carry jewelry, not allowed to ride horses. They were, sorry, slow down. Now I can see the chat. They were not allowed to be in the army. They were not allowed to be in the Navy. They could not go to university. They could not move high up in the church. Because remember, they were probably some of the most Catholic people there were. Because they always tried to prove how Catholic they were. Because everyone knows that they came from Jews. The most important thing was that there was never any intermarriage. The Chuetas, the 15 families, always married within themselves all the way up until the 1900s. Okay, for centuries, they were always marrying within each other. And this will become important later. So these are the names of the Chueta families. Aguiló, Bonin, Cortés, Forteza, Fuster, Martí, Miro, and they all mean things. Bonin means good boy. Fuster means carpenter. Pina is a palm tree. Pomar is apple. So it's very similar to my last name in German, Rotштейн, red stone. Many Jewish names were things that they saw around them because they never had last names. Many are asking about Miró, Joan Miró, a famous artist from Barcelona. He is not Chueta because he's the Miró family from Barcelona. Only if you were the Miró family from Majorca were you Chueta. I just want to take a quick comment from Masha, who says that, I know that in our days there are many people, I don't know, it's kind of long to read. I will sum it up for you. Right, so the question is, how do people know if they have Jewish ancestors? Believe it or not, Spain does a very good, meticulous job of keeping the marriage certificates in the churches. And that was the only way to get married then. So many people are able to have incredible family trees. Later, I will show you a family tree that goes back to the 1500s. So yes, Masha, there are ways for people to find out their ancestors and to go back so far. But just important with the Chuetas, if you have one of these last 15 names, for sure, you have Jewish ancestors. The ensaimada. I promised I would get to some food stories, so here you have it. The ensaimada is probably the most important dish in Majorca. When I moved here, I saw it and I said, I've had this before. My family that happens to be Jewish, they live in Puerto Rico, they have this food as well, except they don't call it ensaimada in Puerto Rico. You know what they call it? Majorca. So I grew up eating Majorcas, not knowing that I would live one day in the island called Majorca. So after living here for 4 months, I went to visit my family around Pesach, Passover, before the holiday. And I called up my family and I said, guys, I'm bringing home a Majorca from Majorca. I can't wait for you to try it. So I bring home a big Majorca. My mother said, no, I took the chametz out of the house before Pesach. You have to eat it in the garage. And I put it on the car. And I just found this picture the other day. I guess I was so excited that there it is. You have a picture of the Majorca sitting on the car. And one by one, my family came to eat this Majorca from Puerto Rico. Wow, it's delicious, Dani. Thank you so much. Great job. I come back to Majorca, and I'm with a coworker, and we start talking about all the different ways to eat pork in Majorca. Salchichon, bortifaron, morcilla. You don't have to translate this. There's 20 different ways to eat pork. And my friend said, and the ensaimada. And I said, excuse me? He goes, yeah, the ensaimada has pork in it. I go, no, it doesn't. It's bread and sugar. It's a dessert. There's no ham in it. I don't eat pork, and I would know if I tasted pork. They said, Dani, I don't think you know what the word saim means in Mallorquin, in Catalan. I said, nope, but I don't think I'm going to like it. So saim means pork fat, lard. You know, like the fat of the pig. And I said, oh my God, I gave my entire Jewish family pork fat without realizing it. This is really terrible. But the only one who would really care is my mother. She's the kosher cop of the family. And my father's Israeli, you know. I grew up with him saying, look, your mother's not watching. Let's have some lobster. You know, this is the type of Abba, you know, I have. But my mother, I could not tell. So once they finally came to visit me in Majorca, we were walking around and said, oh, look, Dani, it's the ensaimada looking thing. And I said, no, Mom, they don't make them very good here. Let's go somewhere else and somewhere else. And so we could never find a good ensaimada. So this story happened to me. Now she knows. I'm doing tours now. It's part of the story, and she's forgiven me. I didn't know. I have a comment saying that someone checked it beforehand. You're much smarter. So it's interesting. They make a lot of breads with pork here. So the reason is because there is a theory that this ensaimada used to be a challah, like a Jewish bread. And I'm going to show you pictures of what they used to look like right now. This is what they used to look like. They were always braided, you see? And as a way for the Inquisition to know who was Jewish and who was not, their own chuetas would go to the community oven where everyone in the town would come together and bake their breads, and they would put pork fat, because you can smell it, you know? And so everyone would know, they really are Christians, you know? They are using pork, they're eating pork. But if there was someone who was still using vegetable oil, then this was very risky. So I'm very excited to share with you that we now have a famous baker named Tomeo Arbona. You see him here on the bottom left corner. And he is now, for the Jewish community, able to make ensaimadas without the saim. So we can have them without pork. And actually, he is making challah for us on Friday nights. So we took the word saim out, and we put the word challah in. And that's why we are calling it, in Limmud Majorka, we call it en chalamadas. So this is what, if you come to Majorca one day, we invite you to come to a Shabbat with us and to eat en chalamada with us together at our table. Continuing on our story, these names were hanging until 1834. So in the 1700s, you have the peruques, they're called. These are the wig chuetas. They are very ostentatious, very wealthy chuetas who put on wigs to show that they were just as good as everyone else. And they went to Carlos III, the king in Madrid, to complain about the treatment they were getting as second-class citizens. So in 1788, the king ruled in their favor and said, you cannot mistreat the chuetas anymore, but it's one thing to make a law, it's another thing to have it actually be employed. So the society did not respect these laws. So then you see in 1809, the Argenteria, which is the street of the silver makers, this is where they all lived. All of the Chueta families lived on this street in this area, was attacked. And finally, in 1820, look how late that is, they attacked the Santo Domingo Church. They burned it down. No more of the San Benitos, no more of the names. But because since the 1400s to the 1800s, these names have been passed around, this is when they realized that they will never let go of the stigma. Do you know if Israel counts people from Majorca with these names? I will be talking about that just in a little bit, Anya. Thank you for the question. It's important to know that there are over 300 names from Majorca that have Jewish ancestors. But what happened in 1755, they paid money to take their names off the list, and only the poorest families were these 15 ones who stayed. We have names here like Salom. Come on, Salom and Shalom. Sabat. Abraham. There are last names of people here with Abraham, but because they are not part of the 15, they were never discriminated against. They were never treated as if they were Jewish. Only those 15 last names. These are all great questions, and I'm happy to save them to the end. I'm going to just quickly get to the end of our PowerPoint so we can take some questions, as I see it's creating a lot of interest. In 1823, the Chueta quarter was once again attacked. And moving right along, in 1876, you have a very famous priest. Look, he has two Chueta last names, Taronji Cortez. Goes to the mainland to become a very famous priest. And even though he's very well respected, when he comes back to Majorca to give a sermon, he's not allowed to do it. Why? Because he is of Chueta. And he wrote a book talking about how terrible this mistreatment was of the Catholic Church. It's fascinating that the Catholic Church tried to eradicate Judaism from Majorca Island, but they kept it alive by creating and hanging these names where these people were never accepted into the full society. If people are interested to learn more about this fascinating subject, I highly recommend a book by Baruch Brownstein, a New York Jew who travels to Majorca in 1930s, and he writes a book called The Chuetas of Majorca, and it's fascinating. This is where I learned about the Fast of Esther, just incredible, incredible book. And he went into the Inquisition records in Madrid and opened up and saw all of the victims. It's all detailed. The Inquisition kept incredible records. So we see all the names of the people who were killed by the Mallorquin Inquisition. In the 1950s and 60s, you have the tourism boom that happened in Majorca. And this is when now the Chueta thing starts to finally go away, because more outsiders would come. They didn't know the difference between Chueta and non-Chueta. It was a very internal thing. So in the 70s, a group of British Ashkenazi Jews moved to Majorca, and they established a cemetery, and they established a kosher restaurant in a hotel here in Palma. In 1975, we have the death of the dictator, General Francisco Franco. And in 1977, you have the first Chueta, whose name is Nicola Aguiló, who was made fun of growing up in the Chueta area, but he didn't know why. Why was he made fun of for being Jewish when he's Catholic? So he decided, if I'm being treated as a Jew, I want to become a Jew. He moves to Israel in the 70s in Aliyah, makes Aliyah, and he becomes Rav Nisan ben Abraham. And he's an ultra-Orthodox rabbi. There is another Chueta of a rabbi named Joseph Fuster. And they come back every now and then now to help other Chuetas who might want to regain their lost faith. In 1987, the Jewish community of Majorca finally was able to open their synagogue, which is still the same synagogue today. You can see a picture of it here on the bottom left. This is a picture of our kosher chef, Tony Pina. He is Chueta who has returned to Judaism. And thanks to him, we are able to have Seder and have a Rosh Hashanah dinner. Very, very incredible human being. And on the right here, you have a picture of the Jewish cemetery. Sorry, am I going too fast? Okay. To answer Anya's question, does Israel count the Chueta people as Jewish? You see, sorry, that's the next slide. Really quickly, I want to share with you two other books in case you're interested. Angela Selk writes The Conversos of Majorca and really talks about the 1670s, 1680s when all of the escape tried to happen. Fascinating book, nonfiction. And a fictional book is written by Carmen Riera, In the Last Blue. And it's a fictional account of this time when they tried to escape. And actually, we're speaking to a director right now. We are hoping to make this book into a movie. And I can't wait for you all to see it one day in a couple of years. And you will be familiar with the story. So the other question I was asked are, how many Chuetas are returning to Judaism? We believe on the island there are about 20,000 people with the Chueta last names. And up until now, there have been about 10 or 12 Chuetas who have returned to Judaism. There are still some that are trying to do it now as well. And here you can see in 2011, a very famous rabbi who just passed away, named Rav Karelitz of Bnei Barak. He made a ruling that if you are Chueta and you have a family tree like this one down here, and we see that your mother has a Chueta last name all the way back on the tree, it's as if you never left Judaism, because you were forced to convert, you were forced to marry within, and you are still Jewish. You can count as a minion. This is very complicated, because now when someone comes into the synagogue, do they have to come with their family tree? I mean, how do you prove it? And some rabbis accept it, some rabbis do not. So it's very, very, very conflicting. I'm answering some questions now, asking about the synagogues in Majorca. There is one synagogue, it is Orthodox, and there's also Limmud Majorca, which my wife and I started 3 years ago. I will show you some videos now and show you some pictures of the work we are doing here. And Limmud here is different than Limmud in other places, because Limmud here is open to everyone. Jewish, non-Jewish, you can come, you can learn. It's about diversity, inclusivity. And the other question was, are there any kosher restaurants? There are no kosher restaurants in Majorca. We do order in kosher meat from mainland for the 4 or 5 families on the island that eat kosher meat. We hope one day to have a kosher restaurant here. In total, we believe that there's about 1,000 Jews that live on the island. Many Israeli families, they don't come to any of the synagogue events. They hear the word synagogue, go the other way. And we have many Argentinians, Sephardi, Ashkenazi. There's one guy from Iran, one guy from Turkey. We have Jews from Costa Rica, from Mexico, from Morocco. We actually have Jews from all over, one of each country, but many different countries here in Majorca. So here is a picture of our first Limmud that happened 2 years ago. And we expected only 15, 20 people to come, and over 85 people showed up. People from all different backgrounds, Chueta, non-Chueta, families. It was a really beautiful event. We had it in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Catalan. And many people came from Barcelona, from Madrid. We had Jonathan Marcus, whom some of you may know, from Germany, who came. Shireen, who is Mexican but now lives in Bristol, she came as well. A really beautiful gathering. And in August 2018, some incredible events happened for the Jewish history of Majorca. Basically, in May, there was a ceremony that renamed a street Caterina Taronji. Okay? This was important because this is the first time that the city was honoring her as not someone who was stubborn or a terrible heretic, but as someone who was fighting for what they believe in and was killed, unfortunately, for believing in their faith. Then in August, we had the first ever Chueta wedding take place in Israel. There was another wedding before that as well, with a famous writer of Majorca named Miquel Segura, but he married a woman who was non-Chueta. Here we have a picture of Tony Pina marrying Chisca Valls. She and her twin sister have a family tree that shows they are direct descendants of Raphael Valls, the last crypto-Jewish rabbi who was burned at the stake in 1691. And here you have a memorial that was put up in Plaza Gomila, in the place where the burning happened. And it says the Shema, as you can see, and it says in Catalan, the city of Palma has put this here for the memory of 37 Chuetas that were executed on this very place in 1691 for the reason of believing in their faith. And this was huge. This happened only a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, that this may be the only memorial that's in all of Spain that says for the victims of the Inquisition. There are Holocaust memorials in Spain, but I don't know of a memorial for victims of the Inquisition. We started doing tours. Jewish Majorca opened up its doors, our company, and we are trying to get this story out. not only to visitors who come to the island, but to people that live on the island as well. They don't teach about this necessarily in all of the public schools. And the last exciting part is that there was a new board that was elected to the synagogue. I myself sit on that board along with Ari Molina, who is originally from Girona, who's our president. And this man right here is Mikel Segura and Tony Pina. The first time that two chuetas, people who are from Majorca, who have returned to Judaism, are now part of the leadership of the local Jewish community. And very, very exciting to be living in this part of history that's happening now. And last year we had an even bigger Limmud. As you can see, all these people in the back wearing black are a choir that came from a small town in Majorca. Their director is a jeweler named Luis Fortesa. He is Chueta. And I heard them in a church once, and suddenly they started singing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. Because he's Chueta, he's very connected and wanted to sing a song in Hebrew. So I asked him to come and perform at our Limmud. They not only sang Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, but they sang Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, and they sang an opera about the rivers of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, and they learned and they sang for us the Hatikva, which was a very moving ceremony, a way to close our Limmud event. And now, is there a Jewish revival happening in Majorca? You can see we're doing documentary films, we're doing virtual tours that we just came out with during COVID. I'm happy to share that link with you at the end of this lecture. Destination weddings, Jewish weddings are coming here now. We talked about the choir. Limmud volunteers are going into schools and teaching about the Holocaust because we feel that I myself, as a grandchild of Holocaust refugees that went to America, to talk about it in the first person is so important. So we have other members of the Jewish community to talk about their family that suffered in the Holocaust. We also are doing tours with schools around Majorca, going around the Jewish quarter and telling them about the Chueta names. Here we had a huge Rosh Hashanah event where over 200 people came to celebrate the Jewish New Year with us. And we gave them apples and honey, and Tomeo was talking about the ensaimada and its Jewish roots. And we had the choir sing, and we had a klezmer band, and we all started dancing the hora. It was a beautiful event. And now we also, Limmud Majorca is doing Friday night virtual shazooms. Emilia, who is on our call today, she is attending every Friday without missing. And it's amazing because we have Emilia from Moscow and Zoe from London and Rabbi Ariel, people from Israel, people from Chile, people from New York, and people from Majorca. And it's a really beautiful Friday night. Never was a very religious or practicing Jew, and now I can't wait for Friday to come to be together with this virtual community that we are building. And so this is coming to the end of my time here. I do have 2 videos that I would like to share with you, and I will stop the screen so you can see me now, and I also will put up a different background so you can have the link, as you can see, for the virtual tours with Jewish Majorca. Roman is saying, "Muchas gracias, de nada." Very good Catalan, Roman. And we could put the link in the chat as well. Let me get that for you. And I'm very excited to share with you some videos that I will be sharing with you right now. And please prepare your questions. I would love to hear any questions that you have. So let me just share my screen, and I will be sharing with you. I will share with you first our Limmud Majorca video, so you can see our first ever Limmud that we did here in Majorca. Please tell me if the sound is okay and you can hear it properly. The sound is okay?
האור שבשמיים, יחד לב אל לב נפתח בתקווה לאהבה. איך שהלב נפתח חובק את העולם ובקריאת עולם נשאיר לאהבה. אם הוא הכל אפשר זה לא מאוחר, השחר כבר עלה, זמן לאהבה. יחד לב אל לב נפתח ונראה את האור שבשמיים. יחד לב אל לב נפתח בתקווה לאהבה. La 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 la. יחד לב אל לב נפתח ונראה את האור שבשמיים. יחד לב אל לב נפתח בתקווה לאהבה. ורק אם נאמין ובלי שום דאווין בדרך העולה נשאיר לאהבה.
So, thank you. Oh, we have another question. How many Jews are living in Spain right now? I believe the numbers are around 45,000 Jews living all over Spain. The main communities are, of course, Madrid and Barcelona. They each have about 10 to 15,000, 15,000, something like that. And there are also communities in North Africa, Melilla, Ceuta, and in Malaga. There's many British Jews that also come back and forth. Was there another question? And I also have another video I'd like to share with you. You know, our issue with Limmud, and maybe you all will agree, is that sometimes it just happens once a year. How do you build community? With one time a year. So for Rosh Hashanah, we decided to do celebrate for open welcome. Anyone can come. And we talk about how there's still things to discover. We found a beautiful home in Inca called Kan Manroch. I can put the name of it for you to Google it later. And now you will see pictures of it. And it's right in the center of the old Jewish quarter of Inca, another town. And when they were excavating it, the owners, they found what they believed might have been a mikveh, and it might have been an old synagogue from the 1300s. So here's a video of our Rosh Hashanah celebration. I apologize, it's in Spanish and Catalan and English, but it's very visual, so you'll be able to get the idea of how it was. So here we are. This is the Rosh Hashanah from, not last Rosh Hashanah, but 2 years ago, from 2018. Hope you enjoy.
el año nuevo judío, Dios creó una cosa en el sexto día, una cosa que era Zahar Nakaba, o sea que era máscara y familia, masculino y femenino al mismo tiempo. Por tanto, hoy o esta noche, cuando caiga la noche, hará 5.779 años que Akadosh Baruj Hu, que el gran creador, el arquitecto del mundo, creó no el mundo, sino una cosa que era femenina y masculina al mismo tiempo y que tenía forma humana, o sea, nosotros y nosotras.
Bueno, la presencia judía en Mallorca está documentada a partir del siglo V. Se encontraron unas 3 plaquitas de bronce con inscripciones judías en Santa María. En el caso de Inca, en 1328 es el año en que se funda la Alhambra, lo que a día de hoy entendemos por ayuntamiento. Dentro de la ciudad o de la villa de Inca, la comunidad judía tenía un ayuntamiento, ¿no? Una universidad propia en la cual podían decidir todo lo concerniente a la comunidad judía.
Agradeceros a todos vuestra presencia, lo que os habéis acercado aquí para conocernos y para compartir este rato. Que sepáis que esta comunidad ha vuelto a nacer de otra manera, una comunidad inclusiva. No importa de dónde venís, hacia dónde vais, en qué momento de la vida os encontráis, o qué espirituales os sentís, o qué practicantes, si mucho, si poco, por favor, acercaros todos y todas, traer a vuestros amigos, conocidos y seréis siempre bienvenidos. Muchas gracias.
So there was one other question asking about Belmonte. Belmonte is a town in northern Portugal that also has the presence of secret Jews, Portuguese who have thought that they were the last Jews on earth. And in the 1930s or 40s, when Jewish immigrant from Germany came through and spoke a little Hebrew, they could not believe that there were other Jews on the earth. They thought they were the last ones. Now they have a synagogue there, and there have been some crypto Jews who are also, coming back to Judaism as well. And for me, it's a fascinating subject, one that I am now choosing to spend my life to share the story with as many people as possible. And I invite you all to please go to the link above if you would like to come on a virtual tour with me. About half of the tour is a lot of the history that you've learned today, but the other half, maybe 10 or 11 episodes out of 18 episodes, are going through the streets with me as I show and point out different things, street names, walls that have history to it, different clues, different signs that we're finding in the Jewish quarter of Palma to help tell our story. So if you can go there, we are so happy for your support and we appreciate helping us continue our initiative here. Right now, tourism is gone. There's no tourism for this year probably. So any help you can provide by sharing the virtual tour with others, we're very, very grateful. And if we also are teaching Israeli dancing on Sundays at, I believe it's 8 o'clock your time in Moscow. So this is also a fun way to connect and to share. High energy. I like to say it's like Zumba, like Jewish Zumba class. Maybe you're familiar with it. And then we have the virtual Shazum on Friday nights, which you're more than welcome. I know it's after Shabbat for many of you, because we start at 6 o'clock Majorca time, so it's 7 o'clock your time. It's probably around when Shabbat starts, but whether you're Shomer Shabbat or not, you're more than welcome to join us. And I invite you to reach out to us, send us an email if you have any other questions. We're happy to help share the story and continue learning together. That's what Limmud is all about. Sorry, I see one more question. Did I understand correctly in the beginning that some Chuetas still hide that they had Judaism, that they profess Judaism? Yes, the truth of the matter is there may be 5 different types of Chuetas today. The few, 10 or 15 of them that have actually returned to Judaism. Many more, hundreds or so, that identify as Chueta. They're proud of being Chueta, but they don't want to convert to Judaism. It's not important to them. The main amount don't care either way. It's not important to them. They are neither care about it or not. Many that don't even know that they are Chueta, because today it's not a big deal anymore. It's not like 50, 60 years ago, where you still could, have your name called in a mean way. And another group are, really passionate Catholics that if you were to say, oh, are you Chueta? You have this last name. No, I'm Catholic, and they really don't want to talk about it. They don't want to know anything about it. They want it to be over with. And this is a valid response to have, This is, it's very emotional, the history from a small island. And we believe that it's important to talk about history, because if you don't talk about history, it's possible that it will repeat again. So we really feel strongly about that. Another question has come in about DNA. And it's true. There are studies here in Majorca looking at the DNA of the Chuetas, and it clearly shows that there are similarities of the DNA of the Chuetas with the DNA of Mizrahi Jews that are coming from Persia or coming from biblical times. So there is a couple of Chuetas who will say that they have some of the most Jewish blood from way back when, because they come from the 1300s and they've always been marrying within each other. Also important, they have a particular disease here amongst the Chueta people called Mediterranean fever. And it's a disease that only happens amongst the Chueta people because of all of the endogamy, the marriage within the community over all of this time. As they say in Russia, muchas gracias. Yes, well, muchas gracias to all of you. Thank you so much for checking in. And again, find us on Facebook, follow us, find us on Instagram, Limmud Majorca with 2 L's, or Jewish Majorca behind me with a J. And thank you guys once again for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you, Limmud Moscow and Limmud Unlimited around the world. Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you so much, Larisa. And the person who had the Limmud FSU technical person, thank you so much. I forget your name. And thank you, Roman, for suggesting me to Elena to come and participate.
Okay, Dani, thank you so much for your time, for a wonderful conference. And we have just a few things to say more, and then we will just say goodbye until the next time. As we see, you have found all questions, you answered so far, and all questions appears. So I will switch to Russian, and just for a second. Мы на сегодняшний, сейчас уже вопросы закончились, поэтому мы хотели бы сказать вам огромное спасибо за то, что вы были сегодня с нами. Это очень приятно, это огромная честь для нас. И мы хотели бы сказать, что, чтобы вы знали, что все проекты Лиммуда делают волонтеры. И мы гордимся тем, что как слаженно и хорошо идет работа. И если вы хотите, вы нас можете поддержать сразу после окончания сессии. Вы пойдете на страничку Limmud Москва, и где сможете оставить свое благотворительное пожертвование. Если страница вдруг не откроется автоматически, то вы можете перейти на сайт limmud.ru И это не обязательно, но очень приятно. И тем более я уверена, что вы понимаете, что кроме трат на самой конференции есть постоянные расходы, которые несем ежемесячно, да, то есть вне зависимости от проведения самих конференций. Это оплата складов, хостинга, сайта, поддержания, банковские расходы. Поэтому и, соответственно, проведение всех конференций. Вот. И таким же образом мы хотели вам сказать, что следующая наша сессия нашего проекта будет 20 мая. Нашим спикером будет Маркус Давид Пекелес Колумбии. У него с интересной сессией «Евреи. Черная смерть». Сессия также пойдет на английском вместе с синхронным переводом на русском. Так что спасибо всем большое за участие и до новых встреч.